We are live.
Welcome into another episode of Three Man League College Basketball Live. It's the new and improved version of our podcast that endured for so many episodes, Mr. McKeon, but now we are live and we are also on record audio via our typical podcast platform. Just a dynamic platform here that we've established here. It's February 22nd in the heart of the college basketball season. This time next week, we'll be breaking down conference tournaments and all of the do or die postseason glory of our fine sport. How are you, though, on this fine Wednesday, a dreary day in Chicago, as I've returned to my home base here in Chi-Town?
Matt, I'm doing okay. I'm excited to play trivia tonight with you guys. We got a little screwed last week, but I think the Rats are coming for the title tonight. Trivia, man. Yeah, it rocks. Hey, college basketball rocks too. And I cannot wait till March, Jim. I'm getting very excited to go to Vegas and do the whole thing. You know,
less than a week away. We can taste it. It is a dreary day. Matt's making a quick cameo in lovely Chicago as he is headed back out to the West Coast. I'll be out west a bunch in March. We're going to be all over the country trying to cover the hoops as best we can. And we're going to talk about a lot of it here today. Matt, let's do this.
Let's do it. Yeah. Shout out to Hermosa Beach. Those of you out there, come knock on our door and say hi. We'll hang out and talk college hoop, and that's probably about it. So, Kai, what?
Jealous. Well, just jealous of your nice weather you get to experience.
It's just weather. It's just weather. Don't discount the fact of the character that a Chicago winter builds. It does harden you for good reasons, I think.
Agreed.
As always, Joe Paskoff, thank you for all the brilliant work that you do in all walks of DJing and audio music making, but especially the work you do with this podcast, the best intro and outro music in the game. Please subscribe to us. That's on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, among other platforms. Please leave us reviews. Oh, I forgot to plug our Twitter and Instagram. The same handle applies both at 3MW_CBB. Reverting back to that review section, Mr. McKeon, when you do find us on those platforms, we implore you to review and rate, preferably the 5-star variety. And if you do review, we will read those back to you. So please phrase it as a question, or just maybe a heaping hump of praise as to how awesome we are. One of
those are the only two genres.
Yes.
Only praise or question.
Yes. Kessia says, great podcast. Appreciate what you guys do. Listen and watch on YouTube all the time. Perfect review. Thank you very much.
That is the praise genre.
Yes. And the other one,
review the reviewer. Yeah.
The other one from Unfortunate A&M Fan, Fansville is the title of the review. Hello, lovely day in Aggieland after we swept the SEC Tiger schools. Ooh, he did. A&M swept Auburn and Mizzou. He put in parentheses, though, we don't talk about the Memphis loss. Very good. Memphis also a Tiger, but not in the SEC, so it counts. He asks, who do y'all like as a bid stealer / where do you think they come from? Great podcast as always. Jim, you wrote down a couple names.
Yeah, first of all, not a year to be an unfortunate A&M fan. We're going to talk Texas A&M later in 3-Man Thoughts, so stick around, Mr. Fan. We're going to talk your squad. Bid stealers, though, I mean, the obvious one that is catching a lot of steam in the college hoops world is Villanova, having just won at Xavier, giving people the idea that Justin Moore's playing really well. He's playing pretty well, and obviously it took him some time coming off almost a year off with an Achilles tear. So Villanova's got a chance at Madison Square Garden in the Big East. Any non-FAU Conference USA squad, although North Texas has a chance to earn that large. And then, Matt, the fact that there's only 2 Pac-12 teams of relevance really sets up a possible bid stealer out there. Oregon, Arizona State, like we've seen some high upside out of those squads. USC, the only other team that's really in the field at this stage. So I think Pac-12 could have a bid stealer as well.
Yeah, they'd probably be favored to have a bid stealer there if you set the lines on UCLA, Arizona versus the field. The field's probably favored because there are some other good candidates that can make a run in such a wide open field. I'd be surprised if, I'm sure that those odds won't actually exist, but if you can back into the math yourself, a lot of bid stealers.
That's it.
Hi.
That's it. That concludes our review section.
Hi. There has to be another review. I wanted another review. Okay. Well, I guess that's all we have. Now people aren't as excited about us anymore. That's okay. Personal corner. Let's win trivia tonight. Hopefully my presence there will keep the other cheating tables at bay. Just that, the intimidation factor that I bring forth when I walk into the room.
You got to intimidate the scorekeeper too, Matt. He was the one that really
So he was
stole
actually
2
at
points
fault.
from us last
Yeah,
time.
that's tough. That's tough. A lot of enemies when you're playing trivia. So, we just got to put our heads down, play our game, Kai. It's all we can control. New website updates, vacant, void, but we got content elsewhere. So just check that out. Usually our faces and our voices are behind that. That's all we have for today on the intro section. It's time to round it up.
Let's do it. Before we round it up, though, Kai, we got to give some love to Home Field. And of course, I'm repping some new Home Field Mizzou gear.
Yeah.
They just opened or dropped a new line of Mizzou Tiger gear. So Home Field, shout out to
They do.
our favorite apparel maker.
I'm wearing 3-man weave home field gear. Yes, it exists. Go to our website to check that out at the very top. Home Field, if you haven't heard of them, they make premium collegiate apparel for schools of really all sizes across the country. There's over 100, I would say, schools on their website you can purchase shirts from. Joggers, even for some schools. Jim mentioned they just released some Mizzou joggers. Yeah, I bought them with the paw print on there. Kansas came out this week for a little refresh, whatever, if you're into that sort of thing. Colorado got a refresh today on Wednesday. And tomorrow, Providence gets some gear on Home Field as well. So a lot to look forward to on that site. Again, the most comfy hoodies, shirts, everything. They're fantastic people as well. They're on Twitter at Homefield, APPARL. They love to hear from you. Tweet at them if they don't have your school, and they will work hard to get your school on some shirts behind the scenes. Once you go to checkout for your first order, you can use our promo code for 15% off. That is 3MW. Their website is homefieldapparel.com. Homefield, wear one for the team.
All right, let's round it up. Talk news and notes. And I am sure I will be the only one to make this clever joke pun. Let's talk the crimson elephant in the room. That would be Alabama. Have to talk about the Tide, the story in the sport right now. I dumped a bunch of thoughts into the outline here. There's a whole lot of different ways to look at this. It's the biggest story in the sport. Like I said, the legality of it, I think, is something that we're not going to get into. We are not lawyers. Only Matt's brother is a lawyer. We'll let him dive into the Alabama gun laws. But here's the story. Darius Miles, a player who has been kicked off the Alabama team this year, I believe he was kicked off even before he was arrested, had been indicted for capital murder. Now the story comes out this past week or this past couple days that Brandon Miller, the star freshman future NBA draft pick, was the one who brought the gun to the scene. Now, to clarify some details, it was not Miller's gun. He was returning Darius Miles' gun by request, who had texted him, "Can you bring it to me?" This was in the evening near bars. This wasn't dropping it off in the middle of the day at his house.
Mm-hmm.
So I think any reasonable person of semi-intelligence without a peanut brain could infer that there could be negative consequences to bringing a loaded gun to this scene. There are also reports that Miller and Jaden Bradley's cars blocked the street, preventing the eventual victim from leaving the scene. That's dicey. We're letting the investigation take care of that, just kind of feeding what this report had said. But Matt, I think the ultimate problem with what happened here was the way Nate Oates responded to it. His quotes were very hand wavy almost, and I will read them now. What he had in a press conference, quote, Brandon Miller, quote, "Not in any trouble," end quote, "as a result of his alleged involvement." And then the longer one, quote, "We knew about that. Can't control everything everybody does outside of practice. Nobody knew that was going to happen. College kids are out. Brandon hasn't been in any trouble, nor is he in any type of trouble. In this case, wrong spot at the wrong time," end quote. That is what Oates said about this. Man, I just don't buy that at all. I think if you're bringing a gun to somewhere in a tense environment out near bars, it's not the wrong spot at the wrong time. You kind of put yourself in that place. You brought a loaded weapon. This is not a shirt. This is not a homework assignment. This is not a case of beer. It is a weapon. So a lot of different directions to go in here. Matt, what are your initial thoughts with this whole situation going on around Alabama basketball?
I don't have any profound thoughts. I'm sorry, Mr. Marquee, maybe you can shed some more logic on this. My general take is making sure we read the line between what's breaking the law and what's just, bad general program management or institutional control. I think it's very clear we keep those in the back of our brains here, Kai, right? So it sounds like Oates is getting a lot of bad press. And I think for a little bit of negligence and maybe potentially over casually handling something that probably should have been handled a little more formally. But again, in terms of the laws being broke, what do we actually know on that front?
I do. Apparently, he has not broken any. Apparently, but the fact that Alabama knew about it and knew his alleged involvement into it, and still let him play and didn't come out with anything, or at least suspend him, is pretty shocking. And I think every other school outside of New Mexico State would have suspended him. I mean, frankly, it kind of speaks to the character of Nate Oates for not doing that. And even though if he's not in any legal trouble, that's still a pretty bad look. And Pat in the chat says, yeah, 5 Louisville players once missed curfew and got suspended for a Virginia game. Indiana players were out in Chicago just drinking or being out, and they got suspended for a game. Miller got suspended for 0 games for bringing a gun to a teammate. It's kind of wild. It's a bad look on Oates, Jim. It's a bad look on Alabama.
Yeah, legality aside, I'm shocked this isn't against university or team policy to be ferrying loaded weapons around the city. That just seems like an issue. I don't get the innocent hand-wringing of some Bama supporters that are like, how could he possibly have known? This isn't a toddler touching the stove. Like, you know what you're doing. You know what this is. This isn't some object you've never seen before. You are bringing a gun somewhere. So spare me with the, how could he possibly have known? On the other hand, there are people on the all the way other spectrum that are equating what Miller did to what Miles did. And that's insane. Like, throw him in jail, he's a murderer, is it also ridiculous. Let's let the legal process play out. Matt, we are a big Truth is in the Middle podcast with team outcomes.
Because it usually is.
That's Jim. What's going on here.
Is.
Yep.
Yeah.
I am shocked that there hasn't been some sort of suspension. It does seem like he's just going to keep on playing. They play tonight as we podcast. They're at South Carolina. Matt, if there's a game you could suspend him for and probably get away with it, that's the one. But that would feel like a weird 1-game slap on the wrist reactionary thing. It's hard to know what the punishment should be. I just don't like the initial hand waving of it by Oates. And he released another statement last night that was more like, I did not mean to downplay this. That was poor of me, which is better. But man, just in the first place, it seems so easy to be like, we're investigating this internally. No further comment at this time.
Hey, future lottery picks. What are you doing with a gun? What are you doing, man? Like, you're about to be a millionaire in like 6 months, dude. Come on, not take the high road here and tell you what to do, but be a little smart. You got people in your corner. What are you doing? I don't understand.
Yeah, this situation passed the like my friends who don't care about college basketball test of they're texting me about it. Like, what's going on here? How is this possible? And one of them was like, hey, if you were going to be, or if I was going to be a lottery pick and you asked me to bring you a gun, I'd be like, I'll pay you $10,000 in 6 months if you don't do anything. Like, let's figure out a way to not implicate ourselves. Like, it's wild. We're going to have to let this play out. Again, we are far from legal experts, but from a basketball perspective, it could affect Alabama. We saw what happened with Texas almost losing at home to Rice after Chris Beard got suspended. Now you got this kind of off the court distraction going on in the media. We'll see how Alabama fares tonight at South Carolina and going forward. Texas A&M
real quick,
the SEC crown.
Kai,
go ahead.
Your point on the what would happen if it happened at reciting other school examples is interesting, right? Which I find it's just such a fascinating example of holy cow, we live in a country of like many different countries. Like the SEC, what goes down in SEC country doesn't fly in Big Ten country, right? It's just, I think people culturally and geographically, like that's a real thing. So I think it's important to keep that in mind as we litigate this versus what's happened. Not defending it, but like I think that's a very real. This plays out differently if this happens at Northwestern.
If this happened at Mizzou, he would have been suspended immediately. I guarantee it.
Wow, Kai speaking on behalf of the Mizzou administration.
The way Dennis Gates has run his program, I would say I'm pretty confident.
Gates is a no-nonsense guy.
Yes.
Didn't Kalen Grimes hit somebody in the face with the butt of a shotgun? I remember this when I visited the school. He was like on the basketball team and he got suspended. That was a whole part of the Quinn Snyder issue. I do feel like that's correct. Sports mean more at certain places. And unfortunately, that seems like it's taking precedent here. But again, I don't know how Brandon Miller is off the court outside of this. I have no input on that. So we're gonna let them take care of that.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on. Other coaching news. It was an adventure this week in the coaching world, actually. Lafayette put their new coach, first-year coach Mike Jordan, who has done a pretty nice job of turning the program around. He is on paid leave due to an investigation around and I quote, complaint. We don't know what it was. I saw a rumor that it was a treatment of players, yelling at players. I don't know. Hard to say, but he is suspended, as is Radford's head coach, Darius Nichols, after a DUI arrest. Man, it's not worth it. Get a ride home. We saw how badly Mark Few got skewered for it when that happened, and people still bring it up constantly when going against his legacy. Just don't do it. Both these coaches have done a really good job early in their tenures. So,
yep.
You ever seen Mike Jordan's Twitter game? It's pretty funny. He does not use Twitter like a normal coach. It's very casual, like, oh, this guy is pretty young still, and just like comments on stuff like a normal person.
His interviews for the Almanac, Matt, were very funny, like very blunt about like, that guy will not play. He's bad.
Yeah.
So, like it was
I
great.
respect
Like
that. We need more.
I do
of
too.
That. We need a lot more of that in our sport. God, the whole
I do
clone
too.
of carbon copy robot automated people speaking in microphones. I agree.
Yeah.
It's refreshing.
Let's just get him to not cross any lines with treatment of players.
Yeah, assuming he's doing the right thing to his players, right? Under that assumption.
Yeah. So noteworthy with both those schools. They both play tonight, Wednesday, the 22nd. We'll see how that trends for them. Kind of like Alabama, where there's these distractions that could potentially hurt the program, hurt the team. How about recruiting? We'll go there. A couple more lighthearted stories here, Kai, especially with the New Mexico Lobos, who got a commitment from 4-star shooting guard True Washington, a top 100 recruit of the class of 2023. He is Ty Washington's uncle. That's right, uncle. Ty Washington is in the pros. His uncle just committed to New Mexico. Fun little twist of Matt. This, sometimes you talk about time zones are confusing. How about familial relationships where the uncle is younger than the nephew? How about that?
Yeah, that one. I'm still confused here. So he'll be better, right? Because no, I'm joking. It's just you think your uncle should be better than your nephew, but in this case, obviously, you have to imagine True being better than Ty. Kai.
No, he's not better than Ty. No.
Oh, well, there you go. It's settled then, Jim. We'll see.
I feel pretty confident saying that. Yeah, I'll say that.
It's a fair assumption.
I want to say, I mean, there was a point where Ty was like a top 75 recruit and then just totally took off when he transferred, I think, to Compass Prep and became a monster top 20 recruit. What was committed to Creighton, I think, and then ended up at Kentucky. So that's the path you can take when you blow up like that. Also, Wake Forest got a commitment from 4-star shooting guard Parker Friedrichsen. Sounds like he's a lights out type of shooter, Matthew. Hey, Damari Monsanto replacement if he happens to go anywhere. So big time for them. Good job, Mr. Forbes. Then the class of 2024, 4-star shooting guard Paul McNeil to NC State. He's a top 30 recruit. Not all 4-stars created equal. He's fringe 5-star. And this makes sense. It seems like playing at NC State is pretty fun for guards. You got a lot of freedom. Get to fire away. You play up tempo. You pressure. Pretty good crowd. I mean, I just watched the UNC game. The crowd was going nuts. So I get it. Kai, if you were a lights out scoring guard, NC State would at least be appealing, right?
Yeah, I'd rather go to UNC though.
Yeah,
that's just me.
True. A lot of freedom in that offense
NC
as
State.
well.
Rather go to Duke or UNC. NC State would be my third choice on Tobacco Road.
Shots fired at Raleigh. Pack Pride's going to be after you. They're fan forum. Transfer news, nothing major. Matthew Cotton from Yale committed to Hawaii. Just worth mentioning because we will see a lot of Ivy transfers moving this offseason because they cannot play as grad students in that league. So anybody using their 5th COVID year has to do so elsewhere because they're a grad student. Injuries and suspensions. Terrence Shannon of Illinois has been out with a concussion. 2 sort of disappointing performances from Illinois. Going to keep monitoring that. You never know the severity of those. You can come back quickly or it could take a while. We'll see what happens with Shannon, but not having to wait and see what happens with Colin Castleton of Florida. Big bummer, kind of the centerpiece of the Gators turnaround or hopeful turnaround this year. They talked him into coming back for a 5th season. He is out for the year with a broken hand, broken wrist. Bad news for the Gators. First early returns on that without him were pretty ugly, Mr. Matthias. We'll see if that continues.
Or is Arkansas just really good and we're not even privy to that yet? Counterpoint.
Well,
no,
I mean,
Castleton
they finally are playing.
I'm tired of
junior
flip-flopping on
minutes.
this Arkansas thing. Let's
pick
a side. Pick a side right now. Pick a side right now.
Picked your side? Have you picked your side, by the way?
I'm not that impressed with Arkansas. Yeah, I'm not that impressed by Arkansas.
No,
I'm not afraid of them.
Yeah. I'm gonna dig in on Arkansas with Nick Smith playing 30 minutes is really good. Unfortunately, when I pitched them as a great future buy, they played him like 5 minutes the game after. So that wasn't the version I was hoping to see. But the last two games, the win over Florida, the win over Georgia, by combined like 50 points, Nick Smith has been a featured option. So I do think the ceiling is rather high for the Razorbacks. All right, other random news and notes. Kai, I am handing you the baton. Reddit stat of the day. You're my guy.
From Brisboog, Michigan State clinches its Big Ten record, 35th straight season of 500 or better. I think that's in conference play. Pretty impressive numbers there for Michigan State. 35 straight seasons. Wow. Kudos to Tom Izzo. And I guess the guy before him, escaping me.
What's his name? Hall of Famer.
He's a legend. Heathcote.
Thank you. Jim.
Yep. There we go. We got there. Took us a while. I'm sure that's like, trivia. People are yelling at you. I know the answer. How do you not get this?
We got to get that recall going for tonight. I do have a part 2 for Reddit stat of the day, Jim.
Love it.
Shall I?
Please
From
do.
Sam Lance on Twitter via Reddit here. Kansas has, surprise, set the record for most Q1 wins in a season with 14 since the net started back in 2018-19. So not many years here, but 14 already for KU, and they still have West Virginia and Texas on the horizon, plus the Big 12 tournament. Kind of wild how many good wins this team is racking up.
Yep. And I wrote, I feel like this is kind of an ensemble cast award at the Oscars because you need the rest of the Big 12 to be super duper awesome and everybody else is a Q1 win for this to happen. Of course, you have to win the game still, but you need the opportunities to get there too. They schedule really well in the non-con, but then having 90% of your Big 12 games be Q1, that's how you set records like this.
I'd like to know the best Q1 win percentage of all time, like up to a min number of games, right? Like over 6.
Like I bet someone's gone 1-0 before.
Like 1-0, right? Yeah. Like so 6-0. Someone going 6-0 or 7-0 or 9-1 or anything. That's a research homework assignment for our listeners. Kai, go ahead.
To Jim.
Jim, go ahead.
Well, the last bit of news was we had the top 16 reveal. Normally, this would be the leader of Roots Roundup, but unfortunately, like I said, Alabama kind of stole that. And speaking of Alabama, they were the number 1 overall seed in this top 16 reveal, followed by Houston, Purdue, and Kansas. A little bit surprising. Kansas was 4th overall, but since then they have beaten Baylor and won at TCU. So there's a chance they are continuing to climb. I'd be surprised if they kept this pace up and they did not pass Houston. 2 seeds, Texas, Arizona, Baylor, UCLA. Kai, Mr. Cronin had a reaction to this.
Mick Cronin called their seed comical, which implies that, okay, either he doesn't like Arizona being higher than him on the S curve, or he thinks UCLA should be a 1 seed, which I'm not sure you can make the argument based on resumes there. 2 seeds pretty good.
I'm tired of coaches giving their input on bracketology. It's just the most exhausting, nauseating, overly biased, excessively ignorant take. They're always the worst takes.
He blamed it on, or at least partially on, the fact that UCLA is moving conferences. Like he said, like it was like kind of like it hinted that it was sort of like a punishment. Okay. I was like, this is ridiculous.
No, UCLA is the opposite problem of Kansas, where there's no Q1 games in their league because their league stinks. That's the problem. There's like one other tournament team. Arizona's there. They're 0-1 against Arizona. USC is the other potential tournament team there. That's your problem. You're not getting everybody else around you to pull your weight. Your wins don't mean as much. So we'll see. I would have liked it if he was calling this comical, where he's like, we haven't earned that. We're crap. We're a 5 seed.
Yeah, right. I'm surprised Cronin didn't take that angle. Like Cronin's guy wouldn't care about this. So I'm shocked that he A, cared, and B, was like salty about his team. I was very out of character from my Cronin perception.
You could win the tournament as a 2 seed. Lots of people have done it.
I promise you.
I don't know why you're worried about this one so much. Of the 3 seeds, Tennessee, Virginia, Iowa State, Kansas State. Since then, a couple of big wins for K-State. Couple of big losses for Iowa State. They could probably drop down to the 4 at this stage, likely passed by, I'm going to say Marquette, who just won at Creighton, just a monster win. The first road win for a top 4 Big East team at another top 4 Big East team. So huge for the Golden Eagles there on the cusp of a outright title in the Big East, the first of Shaka Smart's career, first conference title at Texas, VCU, or Marquette. Impressive stuff there.
Interesting.
Indiana, Gonzaga, Xavier were also on the 4 line. Indiana raised quite a few eyebrows being ahead of UConn. Just everything on a team sheet pointed towards UConn.
Yeah.
That's something we could hash out further. Yeah, we won't right now. Creighton, Miami, Florida, St. Mary's, the other teams mentioned as getting looks for the 4 seeds, but they did not make that particular cut. Fun little bracket preview. Fielding the 68 if you want more in-depth analysis of this. They had a great Monday episode with Greg Waddell and a couple of veteran bracketologists deciphering what all this meant going forward. So check that out. But Matt, I'm kicking it back to you for we saw that.
We saw a lot of stuff. Let's start with Nebraska and Vanderbilt, who are, I cannot believe they're even in the tournament picture, but they're winning games and they're winning enough to put themselves within striking distance of the squad. Bracketologist Kai, bracketologist Jim, opine on the Huskers and the Doors' chances of dancing.
Vanderbilt's closer, super long way for Nebraska still. I don't think they'll get there.
Okay.
But they won 3 in a row here. It's been impressive for them. Good for Hoiberg not giving up on the season with the injuries they've experienced. Casey Tamanaga, 23
can shoot it.
Almost 24 points per game in the last 5 games, 68% from the field and 45 from 3. Not bad.
Stroke it.
Not bad,
Gotta
Jim.
find them.
Vanderbilt kind of close-ish, but still has a lot of work to do, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, the resume metrics for both are like in consideration worthy. Vanderbilt's average of 54, that's near cut line. Nebraska is still down 63.5, and they are 14-14 overall, so they cannot be considered by rule. You have to be above 500 for anyone to even look at you. But the quadrant win stuff, they're at least, kind of in the Texas Tech ballpark of they've got some big wins, including in high Q1. Their Q1, Q2 record isn't great, but they have no bad losses, which we saw mattered a little bit in the reveal. There's a chance. There's a little bit of a path for Tominaga to get there. I searched Tominaga in my Twitter history because I remember loving him coming out of junior college, and I call him the Far East Fireball. What do we think of that for a nickname?
That's pretty good. Where's he from again originally? What are his roots?
Japanese,
Japan.
right? Yeah.
Yep. He's okay, Japan. Yeah. Kid can stroke it. Love him.
Man, you gotta like watching him and Derek Walker. Like the chemistry they have, where Walker's at the top of the key and is either getting into a handoff for him or Tominaga going backdoor. They read it perfectly every time. It's awesome.
Hoiberg he runs good stuff. I continue to believe that he's a good coach despite his kind of flame out there in Nebraska. Hopefully they can, mount a good close to the season to keep him on the bench there. I'm not sure Nebraska fans agree with that, but I think you should agree with that. All right, from teams to players, Antoine Davis and Jalen Pickett. Jalen Pickett was a absolute fireball this week. 36.5 points, 8 dimes, 6 boards over 2 games. Antoine Davis creeps closer to history, 125 points away from breaking the all-time record. He should get there. In general, I think he should get there.
It depends how much postseason they play. So just 2 regular season games left, and then
call it
at least
3
one horizon.
guaranteed. Yeah,
so 3 guaranteed.
They should win. Hopefully 4. I think 4 would be
and
enough
then
to get Come
will
on,
they
Antoine,
get invited to like will they get invited to a non-NIT tournament? Will
that tournament
will
would
they
be
hunt
crazy
one?
to not invite him. Like,
Yeah.
you get an actual storyline for the CIT or whatever. It's not that anymore. But
Yeah, I bet he gets invited. So call it 5 games. Yeah, he'll get there. He gets 5 games then, I bet.
yeah, you almost want him to not get a protected seed in the Horizon tournament, so he has that extra play-in game, like the 5 through 12 teams play before the 1 through 4. Get that extra chance for you, and it feels a little dirty because he had way more games than Maravich and the 3-pointer, but whatever. It's still cool to have this happen while we're cheering for the sport.
And less cool things, maybe cool if you're into entertainment of the physical variety, Kai. Austin P and North Florida got to an absolutely crazy brawl at the end of their game. I watched the replay. It didn't look like an overly obvious taunting dunk toward the end. Like the guy kind of like botched what he was trying to do anyway. It almost looked like it was embarrassing. So I was just weirded out by the fact that the opposing player took offense to what was just a really lame, stupid attempt to dunk.
He bounced it to himself as an attempt to alley-oop it at the end of the game. It was definitely a taunting thing.
Nuts on your face.
No, I think it was. It just wasn't like super. He kind of like, he looked really unorthodox and not cool. Like, I think if I'm the player who retaliated, I'd be more like laughing at that guy, not like, hey, what the heck, man?
Well,
we're down 10. You don't come to our building and do that.
He didn't let him finish.
Yeah, he nailed him.
Tackled the guy.
So Yeah, I'm saying let it go. Let it go. That was my take. But
well,
I'm just more of a
but
peacemaker.
tempers are high. I mean, I get it. Also, it's a 1-point game. Like it wasn't like a blowout here. North Florida probably still trying to get back in the game and stop them.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, actually, it was a close game, which completely renders whatever.
Interestingly enough, so P has suspended 3 guys. North Florida supposedly has not suspended anybody, at least yet, and they were just as much at fault here for this brawl. So I don't understand that.
Back to our theme of today's podcast.
Unconcerned with rules.
Driscoll,
yeah,
guy's a loose cannon, man. He talked 45 minutes straight, and I didn't get a word in edgewise.
He probably wanted to be in the brawl. Shout out to him.
He would have. I bet he would have. Yeah, he's a good guy though. He's a good guy, Matthew.
This is the theme of today's show: is accountability lies within your own domain. So you can be mad about others that don't do enough or do less, or vice versa. Don't concern yourself. That's kind of where I'm at. I saw this. So the controversial ending to Creighton Marquette, where Creighton gets that clear. So Creighton is down 2, right? They get the steal, and
so Marquette's
Marquette's
inbounding the ball. Marquette's up 2, like 5-ish seconds. Creighton appears to get a clean steal, and then
under their own basket, right?
Yes, and then has a clear path to the basket for a layup. Would have tied the game. Refs called a foul. Game over. Jim, you thought it was a foul. I thought you could have let that one go, especially at home. But
I think you could too. I don't think calling it clean is maybe a little over. Like he had him wrapped, and then as he poked it away, he let go. Like it kind of looked like one of those pass interferences where you pull them with the offhand and reach with the other one. The added context here is that Creighton at Providence, out of a timeout, Providence trapped Creighton, and there was like a little bit of a reach slap on an arm as Creighton was trying to produce a shot in the final 5 seconds that wasn't called. And so I was going back and forth with a very level-headed Creighton fan on Twitter that was like, it sucks to not get either of those 50-50s to go our way. And that I agree with, where you could have called the one in the Providence game that would have given Creighton a chance to take the lead before overtime. And you could have not called this one that would have tied it and sent it to overtime, presumably if Kalkbrenner makes that little flip that he made. So yeah, it's tough, but hey, get these bad luck losses out of the way now and save your good luck for the tournament.
Yeah. Creighton's been awesome. They've had some weird take foot off gas situations in a lot of their more recent games. I thought they were going to put Marquette, and Marquette's really good. I know. And the Big East is really good. So I just think that this team they haven't played at their A+ level for a full 40 minutes in a while. We've seen it for like 30 minutes, 35 minutes, which is why they're playing so well. I think they're scary good if they can put that together for a full slate. Number 6 here. Yeah, this is vintage Cameron crazy stuff here. I don't feel like we need to talk about this. This is very much Kaijin making the outline and finding like a Duke thing, and then I have to expose why Duke fans
we have to make fun of this freaking loser. This is so dumb.
Yes, a Duke fan.
So, go ahead, Kai. Tell
Matthew, because you won't say it right, because I know you won't. You'll try to hide it.
I don't care. What? See, I'm not even like defending Duke. You just continue to dig for anti-Duke K. Coach K is gone. Move on. What's the quote from Period History? It's over.
This can be
over.
It's lame that a Duke fan did this, but if any fan did this anywhere, you're stupid. Yes. So we should talk about it, and just if any college student is listening,
that's fine. Go ahead. Give us
Duke
the whole
fan. Basically catfished a Louisville player. Now, actually might not have catfished. It might have been actually a friend that was a girl, but basically swiped right on an app or DM'd him, one of the two. And they discussed what normal people discuss and they want to go on a date. Then posted his DMs on a poster and brought it to the game. So I think that's super lame.
That's so
you're posting
awful.
Private conversations for a guy.
Oh, come on.
It was a normal conversation, by the way. It wasn't like he was being a creep. He was just like,
I'm going to shout out Kamari Lands for kind of coming off pretty respectable in the conversation. Shout out to him.
If somebody, Matt, would take your DMs when you were in the dating market and put them on a poster, I mean,
own it. Everything you say to anyone ever, you have to own it later. If you're not, then you don't live in the 2023 digital age. Yes, that's how you have to live your life. If that's not how you live in your life, that's a you problem. Come on. Matt, it's a college kid with a high-profile athlete. Like every girl texting every basketball player, sharing those like there's everything you're saying in these little mini hubs is going to be publicized at some point on the internet. Just expect it.
The only people that didn't fully dunk on this loser and make fun of him were related to Duke. I'm just saying that is pretty telling.
I think it's much more cool that he like acted cool in the actual chatter than it is lame that the guy, whatever, who cares?
Yeah,
Do
no,
we
yeah,
really
tip
care
of the
about
cap
this?
to Lands.
Okay.
And like this wasn't even
Yeah,
that
that's cool.
he didn't get him to say anything embarrassing. So like
Not at all.
Yeah, Lance
It was very normal
Lance is a cool
conversation.
customer about it. It was cool. Yeah.
yeah.
That's this
Anyway.
week's
That's
Kai and
positive
Jim Duke
Louisville
banter.
talk on the 3-man
Hopefully
week
we'll
pod.
fizzle that out.
Right
Loser
there.
Duke
So
behavior.
we can frame it as positive. Number 7, Damian Chong-Quee, my all-time favorite little mini maestros in college basketball. He's still doing it out there for Purdue Fort Wayne. Had an awesome half-court buzzer beater to knock off Wright State. That conference should be one of the crazier conference tournaments this postseason as we saw last season. So Horizon postseason action. Tune in if you can find it. And then 3 more 40 burgers this week. Darius McGee, just a 40 burger assembly line at this point. I don't know how many he has on his career. I think he's got over
A billion.
10?
A billion.
It's a
I
lot.
think it's a billion, loosely.
Cam Sheldon might be the hottest player in college basketball after, watching him slice and dice St. Mary's. He had 40 more against Pacific, a much worse defense, I think we can safely say. And then our guy, Junior Clay, that's Jr. Clay, been a mid-major stud for a while. He had a 40 burger against SIUE, a team that is oddly reeling, and I don't know why my Fighting Brian Barones are losing their juice. But anyway, that concludes We've Saw That. Any final thoughts from you guys on the 40 burgers or DCQ?
I got stats for you. That was McGee's 4th 40 burger of his career, first of this season.
Wow, I thought he had like a lot more than that. Okay.
Darius
They play
McGee.
so slow. That's the problem.
They play so slow. I know.
Darius McGee is number 10 in KenPom Player of the Year right now. Pretty cool. He's the only mid-major player, if you exclude Gonzaga, in that list. Pretty sweet.
I asked you both preseason who'd rather have Max Asmus or Darius McGee. I think I have your answers documented. We're going to revisit that question.
I think I'd still rather have Asmus.
It's close, man.
Jim said Asmus and you said Asmus. Kai, I think you said Asmus.
Yeah.
I said
I did. I mean, they're freaking close. They're both awesome.
I know. It's funny.
Hey,
to
or
debate.
Roberts
That's why
beat
we're talking
Liberty,
about it. Pick a side. Get off your fence. Yeah, they did. Or Roberts is better. Let's get to 3-man thoughts. Thoughts. In ABC order, Jim, we'll start with the ACC because it's been kind of a dumpster fire, or has it been?
Well,
Yes.
we'll find out. Let's discuss it. Well, that's kind of why this all started, because Jeff Capel of Pitt railed against the ACC network for talking about why the conference is down. And he's basically like, why are you saying it is down instead of talking it up? Like Big Ten Network, all they do is shout from the rooftops how great the league is. And the fact is that it is down. I think if the ACC network were to ignore that, you lose credibility, and it's just kind of like silly rah-rah pom-pom type stuff. And it's just not been very good this year. And so people started pumping out some stats as to why and proving that it's not that good. This tweet from Luke Takak was one that I thought was really good. So in 2017, the ACC did really well. They had 29 non-con losses, and the worst one was 118th in KenPom. So like that, hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah, the 19th year was a good year. Yep.
This year, and that year was excluding BC, who was dumpster terrible. This year, excluding Louisville, who would add a lot to the loss column, 43 non-conference losses, and 12 of them are worse than 118th. So this league has taken a lot of bad losses that it hasn't in the past, and that deflates everybody's ability to pick up big wins. It deflates your predictive value. Just looking at Bart Torvik's conference records against Q1 and Q2 competition, the ACC ranks 9th in efficiency overall. They went 22 and 33 in those games in the non-con. It's a 40% win percentage. For comparison, Big 12 was 29 and 20. Just ridiculous. Only league that's over 500 in those games. Well, nope, false. Mountain West 20 and 19. Big 10 24 and 31. SEC 29 and 39. So like better than the ACC. And then you look at even further down versus Q3 and Q4 competition, the Big 12 78 and 2, the ACC 86 and 19. So like there's just such a wide gap there. The Big 10 91 and 6, the SEC 104 and 10, Big East 64 and 7. You contrast that to 86 and 19 of the ACC. There's reasoning. The non-conference performance just wasn't good enough, and you can't go to ACC versus ACC and talk about why, like, oh look, now they're all of a sudden good. Like our only context for this is when you play teams that weren't in the ACC and you didn't do well. So this doesn't mean, Matt, that they can't advance in the postseason. Like last year, you had some teams go far, but that doesn't rewrite history. That doesn't change what you did in the non-con, and just wasn't good.
Yeah, it's also, this is why these discussions, I get mad when other people get mad, because I guess to counter your point, not counter your point, Jim, but if we're only going to judge conferences based on the non-conference portion of the season, that is a pretty small sample to make assertions, which is back to my broader point is the conference versus conference debate. It doesn't ever have a strong foundation to stand on. So why are you getting caught up in a really heated slugfest on Twitter about that? My general take of the ACC is actually a little better than people give it credit for. Still not very good, Kai, but it's a little better than I think people realize. I think it's very weak at the top. I think it's very sneaky deep from, I don't know, 4 all the way down to like 10. But then it gets real, the bottom drops out. And it drops out to like historically bad standards.
I think it's pretty bad. There's no top 20 team in KenPom right now in the ACC. None in the top 20. And there's only 1 in the top 30, and there's 3 in the top 40. And KenPom's not the end all be all, but he's a pretty good resource, and it's good comparison across other leagues. It truly is down. And Jim, I really hope they don't make a run in the tournament, because I can't stand the narratives that they do. When it's like, see, the ACC was great all along because our 9 seed
Coaches
Panthers went to the Elite Eight.
Shut up.
Yeah, the 4 through 10. Like, I'm sorry, I don't think Wake Forest is that good. Even though I love Steve Forbes, I don't think Syracuse is good. North Carolina is pretty plain and simple not good. We're going to talk about them more here in 3-man thoughts. Boston College, Virginia Tech, Florida State. No, like these teams just aren't that good. You have a pretty solid top 5. Miami's guards give them a great shot to make a run. Duke has a high ceiling. It doesn't make the conference good. I just don't think it's strong.
Jeff, you've done a nice job this year. Your run has been aided by a watered down landscape. Just own it and admit it. It's there. Read the fine print, I guess. All right. Sorry, Jim. Final thought there on your thought.
No, that's it. That's my ACC thought. Kai, we can go to your first 3-man thought.
Let's talk some bracket real quick. Resume talk. Okay. I'm focusing on the teams kind of on the outskirts looking in and digging into the resumes a bit more. So first one I'm going to talk about, because I want to keep harping on this because I really think this is interesting. Texas Tech is still in process of making it back in the field conversation. They have 5 Q1 wins in the past 7 games, which is incredible. They're now top 50 in the net. They have their resume metrics average out to 61. So not quite yet for selection. Usually resume metrics, obviously you want to be in the ballpark of, Jim, what would qualify as an at-large? Do the math.
50 or lower. It probably gets you in a very strong conversation.
Their predictives are up to an average of 43. That's not terrible. They are still 5-12 against Q1 and Q2 competition.
So bad.
That is
this.
5 Q1 wins. They have 3 Q1 matters. They have 3 Q1 chances left. They could get to 8 Q1 wins before the tournament, which would be impressive, among the highest in the country. You look at them compared to West Virginia, who has the same record in the Big 12, and you might think, well, if West Virginia is there, why not Texas Tech? West Virginia dwarfs Texas Tech in the net, resume metrics, predictive metrics, and they're 9-12 against Q1, Q2. So there's a pretty stark difference between their resumes. It's not just conference record there. All that to say is Texas Tech has a chance, and I'm here for the story. I'm here for the narrative.
You love
also for
Tech.
Matthew.
Get off Tech.
Yeah, you hate them. They're good now. I mean, they're objectively pretty good.
5-12 is such. I hate that. A team that's 2-2 should be getting preference over a team that's 5-12. Jim,
it's really hard to measure. That's a good age-old question, Matthew. That's hard to measure. Hard to take a side there.
The other thing I don't love about Texas Tech is they did absolutely nothing in the non-conference, just nothing. Like they played LSU in the SEC challenge, so they got nothing out of that. They lost to Ohio State and Creighton in Maui, so nothing out of that. 326th ranked non-conference strength of schedule per KenPom. So outside of Maui, they didn't challenge themselves. They didn't play a power conference team. Georgetown, sorry, you barely count. So yeah, they've been the one of the few Big 12 teams that really needs a good Big 12 record to get in. It will be interesting if both them and West Virginia finish 2-1 to end the year. You get to 7-11 in the best conference in college basketball. You have 7 Q1 wins each, maybe 1 or 2 more for West Virginia. That keeps the slight dream alive, Kai, for 9 Big 10 or Big 12 teams getting in.
Yeah, and don't forget, if the committee is really considering injuries, AMAC missed the entire year, and they've been pretty darn good with him back in the lineup.
Yep,
I think that matters a bit.
Valid
okay, next one, UNC. Been talked about a lot here. I've seen a lot of conversation on Twitter that says, why is UNC still on the bubble ahead of my team, ahead of Nebraska, for instance? Well, they're still top 50 in the net. Their resume metrics, Jim said, that top 50 is kind of the magic number. 49.5 is their resume metric average. So they are right on the cusp. Predictively, they're 39, which means they would be around a 10 seed, 10 or 11, if selected to the tournament as an at-large. Now they're 0-9 in Q1. That's not great. That's obviously very, very bad, but they have no bad losses. They're 5-2 in Q1, and they're 10-11 across Q1 through Q3. So it's still kind of a clean resume, despite no Q1 wins. My guess is they fall short of the tournament, but if they make a run in the ACC tournament, it could happen, Jim.
Yeah, I think it would take definitely some wins down the stretch here. Like, obviously, they're just this weird, like, they never beat anyone they shouldn't, and they never lose to anyone they should not lose to.
Exactly.
They're number one in Haslametrics consistency stat because of that. Like, they have never raised their game to a higher level, and they've never gone lower, which is really weird when you think about what they were last year, late in the season. To not have that gear is strange. Tells you how much Brady Manick's shooting and spacing meant to him. But Matt, then I kind of pose this question to you. Would you rather have that team that just cannot elevate its game but also doesn't lose to anyone bad? Or would you rather have the 5-12 Texas Tech team? I'd rather have Texas Tech and a team with like 2 bad losses versus UNC that's just like, hey, we play a tournament team. We're not good enough to beat them, just so you know.
Well, and UNC's
5-11.
5-11 across those two, but it's
Yeah.
Q2 versus Q1 wins, right?
Yeah, I think they're the same team. Actually, it's just the fact that I think they're generally, their competence is about the same. Texas Tech just played in the Big 12, so their Q1, Q2 resume shakes out like, well, they've proven they can beat tournament teams, but they've had more chances to do it. UNC is just
UNC's 0 for 9 in those. They've had chances.
Well, I thought you said they're 5-11 in Q1, Q2. UNC.
Q1, Q2 combined, UNC is 5-11, and Texas Tech is 5-12. So they're really close.
They're close to those.
But
okay.
Texas Tech's 5 wins are Q1. UNC's 5
They're
wins
all
are Q2.
Or all Q2. That matters.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. And if it's that close, yeah, the Q1 definitely matters. But still, like I'm looking at my Owls, Kai, FAU. 3-3 against the Q1, Q2, 2-1 against the Q1, 17-0 against the rest. Like I want that team over the team that lost one of every 3, that batted 333 against good teams. FAU would bat better than 333 against good teams.
We don't know that
conference. I'm sorry.
And that's why it's so hard to.
Okay. So because we don't know that, then we have to give the default to the team that's actually, no, I don't agree with that. The winning percentage matters, especially at a certain, I'm not saying 1-0 is better than 7-8, but I think like 3-3 is definitely better than 6-12. I feel very strongly about that. 2-2 is probably better than 6-12 even.
I want you to be
against
right.
those quadrants.
I don't know that the committee has told us that that's what they believe, which is
historically
disappointing to me.
My point's committee, you suck. I guess that's what I'm yelling at.
I like that.
I'm yelling into an echo chamber.
Remember, the committee does not follow college basketball very closely during the year. They just don't.
They're all assigned a couple conferences and they follow those really closely.
Yeah.
But then you have like
that's good.
6 guys that haven't followed Conference USA being like, I don't know, North Texas doesn't seem that good to me. Whatever.
Moving on to, this is a long thought. My second one's short. I just want to point out a couple interesting things to the net. So the highest nets currently in the field, projected to be in the field per bracket matrix, it's by far Wisconsin. They're 78th in the net, 78. But it's their quality wins that have kept them afloat. They're 5-6 against Q1. That's pretty good. They're 9-10 against Q1 and Q2. Again, that's really good. And they only have 1 Q3 loss. They're number 47 in resume metrics. So despite the 78 net, which again doesn't determine if you get selected, they have a resume that if they win a couple more, you'd be hard pressed to keep them out of the dance.
Yeah, every time I do the bracket exercise, Kai, I'm like, how do I pull them out? What am I going to put UNC in over them? Are you kidding me? Like,
5 Q1 wins is tough to keep out when you have 6 losses in the same category.
I'm so annoyed with Wisconsin. Get out of here.
You're just pumping up win percentage, Matt. They've got pretty solid win percentage versus those teams.
Here's why. Because the only reason they're in this conversation is because they won at Marquette and they won at Iowa, and they shouldn't have won.
They count.
Marquette just beat Baylor by like 50 million points. It was like we talked about how this was like the all-time letdown spot, and sure enough, it was. And Wisconsin goes in.
The wins happen. They count. They matter.
I know. Sure.
Yeah,
I get it. I just think it's lame. Every Wisconsin fan knows that had they not caught Marquette at the ultimate best spot, Iowa at the ultimate best spot, they would not be near this tournament. Sure, it would be nice to have Wall's ankle healthy. Fine. I can see that. You're not the same team.
Wall missed several games. That matters for sure. Yeah.
And he's been back,
We're gonna
and
get-
they've been terrible when he's been back. This team's bad. Get him out of the
We're
field.
going to get Matt
Next.
on the committee, and he's going to decide which wins count and which ones don't.
Yes.
I do. They should have that, actually.
The second highest is actually closer to normal after Wisconsin. USC has a net of 55, which isn't outrageous. They have the wins. They're 3-4 against Q1, 7-6 against Q1, Q2, but they have a Q3 and a Q4 loss. And though this might look like USC resumes in the past, the difference is they don't have their normal gaudy record. I feel like USC is always in this position with like a 23-5 record. They're just 19-8 against D1. So that's why they're kind of on the cusp right now in the bubble versus for sure in like they have been in the past. And the Pac-12, of course, been down. They haven't had a lot of opportunities.
Yep.
On the outside looking in, just a couple data points here. Arizona State, 69th in the net. They're knocking on the door still, kind of around there. Clemson, 82nd in the net is yikes. They have fallen a lot farther than I think I thought initially. But Matt, they're 6-4 in Q1, Q2, which is very good. The problem is they have 3 Q4 losses and a Q3 loss. It'll be very difficult to select them for the tournament. Their resume metrics are 67th right now in the country. I just don't think we get there quite yet with Clemson. And then finally,
reminder. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Reminder
that net ranking has no bearing on selection, but it's used for
right.
a sorting tool. That's the non-bracketologist making a bracketologist point. Thank you.
And then we've talked about Vandy and Nebraska. Vanderbilt, 87th in the net. Nebraska, 92nd. Still some work to do for both teams.
I'm
That's
just
just
gonna
Vandy
Vandy
boys.
You don't want your net
Come on,
to
Vandy
be an
boys.
outlier. That's
Can't be an
Okay.
outlier.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's fair. It's just an eyesore you can't really ignore. Very fair.
All right, Matthew, your first thought.
My first thought, I want you guys to choose your favorite of these 4 pods. I created 4 pods. You're going to bet on one of these packs as you unleash them into the tournament, your field of whatever. It's like you're playing Squid Game and you pick 4 dudes. And you're right, the guy who has the horse that goes the farthest, or the kid, the aggregate
or else we
best
die.
finish, or else you die. I'm going to,
awesome.
yeah, I'm going to have like what's the bot, the fembot thing that shoots them when they're playing red light, green light. Anyway, crazy show. You guys should watch that if you haven't. Pod number 1, Iowa State, Kansas State, Tennessee, Virginia. Pod number 2, Gonzaga, Indiana, Marquette, Xavier. Pod number 3, Miami, St. Mary's, Creighton, UConn. Pod number 4, TCU, San Diego State, Illinois, and Northwestern. I have my choices.
I am between
let that
pod
marinate.
3, which is UConn, Miami, St. Mary's, Creighton, or pod 4, which is TCU, San Diego State, Illinois, Northwestern. I'm checking out. I'm throwing out pod 1. Not of interest to me. I just don't trust Tennessee. I don't trust Virginia. Iowa State's offense. No, thank you. Marquette might be the best team of this entire exercise, but I don't like the depth of pod 2. I'm very, very torn between pod 3 and pod 4. I will ultimately go with pod 4. TCU, my Horned Frogs, sticking with them. San Diego State, think very high ceiling. I still think, I've been saying it since the preseason, that I think Illinois is built more for postseason play than Big Ten play. We'll see if they figure it out.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
And then sure, I'll take Northwestern. Why not?
Yeah,
They're in there.
I know. At this point, it's fine. They're not bad. They're at least good enough to not make it a nice.
Man, pod 3
Kai,
is so
you're
solid
correct.
across the board, though. God.
How would it be easier to choose your worst pod? Because I think it's actually easier for me to pick the worst pod from.
I
this
think the
than choose
4th
my
pod's
best.
the worst pod. No offense to Jim, but
I think you're an idiot.
yeah.
I mean,
I love the top
seeding-wise-
3, Jim.
seeding-wise,
I
you're
love the top
probably
3
right.
though.
Like that pod 4 is not getting great seeds.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay,
What?
go ahead, real quick. Go ahead, Kai, real quick.
I'm taking pod 2. Marquette, Gonzaga, Indiana, Xavier. Assuming Xavier Johnson comes back. I don't know if Zach Freemantle is coming back ever for Xavier, but that would be
supposed
I
to.
don't know. It'd be tough.
that'd be
They're
enormous
hoping
boost.
to get him for Big East tournament, I believe.
I think Marquette can make a deep run. I still think Gonzaga can make the Final Four. I think Xavier.
God,
I think Xavier can make the Final Four with Fremantle, and Indiana is not terrible. But
like
pod
Xavier's
three is a
defense.
close second, Matt. UConn, Miami, St. Mary's, Creighton,
Okay.
all of upside.
All right, just to rehash, Kai had 2 and 3, and Jim had 4 and 3.
4 and 3.
Jim,
Which like pod 1 has the best seeds of these.
that is the whole
And
point
they're-
to my thought, Jim.
Yep.
I had it in a white text. You can't see it. Actually, if you highlight it. you can-
Oh, okay.
This is
Invisible
basically the
ink.
top. What I just read off. Top pod 1 was the 3 seeds. Top 16 reveal. Pod 2 was the 4 seeds. Pod 3 was the 5 seeds hinted at. I'm just looking at bracket matrix. It's basically been a copy paste of that top 16. Pod 4 are the 7 seeds. I'm sorry, the 6 seeds. So we have 3, 4, 5, and 6 seeds represented here. I've been making this point for a couple of months now. I think this is finally some concrete evidence, although there is still a lot to change with how the seeding will shake out. This field is very deep. This bracket will be very deep from 3 all the way down to like 7, 8, 9. The separation between 3 and 6, 3 and 7. I mean, for God's sakes, the fact that I'm taking almost all 4 of those 6 seeds over all 4 of those 3 seeds, that may call me crazy. I think that's just the fact that the curvature and quality is basically flat, in my opinion, or flatter than what we're used to seeing from the 2, 3 seed line down to even like the 7 to 8, you could argue. Fun tournament. Get ready. Buckle up. That's my take.
The winner is going to be a 1 or a 2 seed, though. That's the difference. Top 8 are kind of unassailable.
That I kind of buy.
Yeah. Texas, Baylor, are they unassailable? Okay, maybe they are.
I'd take them over.
I would too. I know. No one's good. Everyone sucks. Continue. Next thought.
We got to see the path, right? As usual.
Path,
yep.
yes.
Bracket will be very important. All right. We all have shorter second thoughts. Don't worry. This isn't going to be a 4-hour podcast. My second thought is about Texas A&M. Guys, the Aggies. We've really got to maybe open our eyes to how good they have been.
Pay some debt here. Yeah, this is good.
They've won 15 of 17, quickly rising through brackets. We've been a little bit more skeptical of them, and I think we shouldn't at this point. Or maybe I was waiting for them to beat Tennessee or Alabama. Boom, they beat Tennessee. Time to give them a nod. They're in the top 27 of every metric that's on the team sheet. Currently 25th in KenPom. The 2 Q4 losses definitely affected the resume, but I don't know that they matter right now to how I perceive them as a quality of team. Since January 1st, per Bart Torvik, they are number 2 in the country. The only team they are behind is Alabama since January 1st. That's a month and a half of games. That's how good they've been. They kind of make sense as a postseason team because they've got a playmaker in Wade Taylor that rules. He sets other people up. He lives at the free throw line. He can knock down perimeter shots. I did kind of a behind the scenes college all-star game. Didn't end up writing the whole thing out. So sorry, 3-man-weave.com. No content for you. But he almost made the cut for me for the West. He's just really, really good. I think this team is rather impressive, Matt, and I'm late to the party here, but they rock. Oh, Kai has a caveat.
No caveat. The announcer last night in the A&M game said Wade Taylor was the best point guard in the SEC. Do you agree? He said it's not close either, which I was trying to think. I was like, I don't know if I agree with that top of the head, but you can go through it if you want. But he is
I'd take Wallace over him, wouldn't you?
He is the highest rated guard in KenPom Player of the Year in the SEC.
Yeah, I think I would take him. Nick Smith Jr. fully healthy is not a point guard, but like he's a better backcourt player. But yeah, I buy it. Wade Taylor's been great.
Mm-hmm.
The team's really complete, Jim. It hit me like last week. I was like, man, A&M's just kind of good. And they are playing to Buzz's strengths so well. And I think that's why you're kind of seeing the concoction work very well. I will say, as I said on our Field 68 Best Bet show, I worry that this A&M run has been largely propped up by playing in a conference that has absolutely no shooting. And you have to give your tip of the cap to Buzz Williams for playing to your opponent's weaknesses as you sometimes play to your strengths. However, if you play a team who can make shots, maybe their kind of conservative pack liney stuff in the half court will be exposed. I don't know. That's a reach. The team's been awesome. They have depth up front, physicality. Guards are playing well. I'm in on it. And Buzz can coach. We've always liked Buzz.
I'm not sold on A&M, by the way. Hand up to the guy in the chat as well.
Thank you for being a naysayer.
I'm not.
Good job.
They've played a lopsided SEC schedule. There's plenty of caveats in their conference games, and they didn't do a thing in the non-con. I'm still skeptical of this team.
Remember when Murray just boat raced him? Murray just boat raced him.
Colorado did too. They beat him by 30 points.
Embarrassed him. What do you mean competitive?
Yeah, I think the key point, Matt, you made it. Not totally on, like you didn't like hammer it home, but Pat mentioned in the chat how much better their defense has been since January 1st. Well, you know what happened January 1st? They started playing SEC teams, and the SEC can't
had a lopsided
shoot
schedule
for shit. Yeah. So, they haven't played Alabama, who can shoot. So I think that is a big part of it, where their style of playing really, really compact. It's a little Virginia and Houston-esque, where they force long possessions. You have to take a lot of threes late in the shot clock because you can't create anything else against their compact man-to-man. and teams can't make threes in this league. They don't have a lot of great point guards. We just debated, is Wade Taylor the best one? There's no late shot clock playmakers in this conference that could give them a lot of problems. Like, you play this team against Miami, Florida's backcourt, I think they have a lot more issues. A team that can shoot like that. I don't know. It is partially because of the matchups, but I do think they're a lot better than I gave them credit for, and they've been awesome since the start of SEC play.
Shouts to my guy Luke Neer on Twitter. ACC Degens podcast, one of the best, one of my all-time favorites personally. Also coming around to the SEC may not be that good.
Yeah, it's sadly possible. Even our Tigers, Kai, far outstripped in their resume rankings compared to their quality rankings. So, all right, that was my second thought. I won't fully hog the mic here. Mr. McEwen, to you.
All righty. My last thought here, just a quick rundown of small conference winners. We have some teams that have clinched the regular season titles of their leagues. Now, of course, it doesn't matter necessarily quite yet. Matthew, you're a big proponent of give the auto bid to the regular season champ. And I do think there's some merit to that, but I do like the drama that comes with conference tournaments. So UNC Asheville has locked up the Big South. They were the latest team to clinch their conference. They're 14-2 in the Big South, lead by 3 games, kind of running away with it. I didn't really realize that. So kudos to Asheville. They're the best player in the league, Drew Pember. Colgate wins the Patriot, 15-1 right now. Shocker. Oral Roberts wins the Summit. They're 16-0 in the league, probably going to run the table. Vermont basically has the America East locked up. I think it's almost impossible for them to lose, but I don't think it's like official quite yet. They're 11-2, have a 2-game lead, I think, at least. Close races real quick. The SWAC, a 2-horse race between Alcorn and Grambling. Alcorn 1 game up, so still some drama unfolding there. The Southland is also a 2-horse race between Corpus Christi and Northwestern State. Can you believe it? Shades of the 14 seed that took down Iowa many moons ago. In the OVC, Moorhead is 12-4 and has a 2-game lead. I think the only way they don't win this league is if Tennessee Martin beats them and goes 2-0 down the stretch while Moorhead drops both games. So Moorhead almost there. Knock on wood for the Moorhead futures.
Please. Just beat Eastern Illinois.
If they win next game, they're in. Well, they win the regular season. The Colonial, Hofstra and Charleston. Hofstra has a tiebreaker. Hofstra is going to win this league unless something really crazy happens. Side note, this is the worst Colonial ever per KenPom. It's like 26th right now in its conference rankings.
When you add Monmouth and Stony Brook and NCA&T and Hampton, like there's 4 teams that are dragging it down.
Yeah,
it's like I like that they fit within like the Colonial team. Like it feels like those are Colonial schools, I guess. So I like that, Jim. But you're right. Obviously, you're going to expect a regression when you add schools of that caliber.
The Metro Atlantic, Iona now has a 2-game lead. They're in control for now. Still a lot variance that could happen there, but they look to be in pretty good shape. Knock on wood.
Close, Gales. Close.
Matt and Jim both have futures on Iona, if you can't tell. And then the A-Sun.
Last game of the year, Saturday, or March 4th. Sorry.
The A-Sun's getting interesting. Liberty and Kennesaw are tied. Kennesaw has the tiebreaker. Liberty could still win this league. Kennesaw has some tough games coming up, including today with North Alabama. So TBD there, but man, be on the lookout for some bid punchers soon. I'm excited, man. We're almost there. To Matt.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to holster my last thought for next time because I think it's more apt to be presented next time as we get closer to the tournament. I was going to talk some of the mid-major maestros with Max and Darius being at the forefront. There actually aren't a ton of fun little guards or just fun guards from the mid-major world in general this year, but I want to let that marinate for another week. Let's talk previews. We have 3 marquee games to touch on for the upcoming weekend. There are many games, but these are the 3 biggest. Selfishly, Indiana, Purdue will kick off our discussion here. Revenge on the mind of the Boilers, Mr. McKeon. Zach Edey versus TJD. Does Zach Edey cement his Player of the Year award with a dominant performance over Mr. TJD, especially after the Hoosiers got them at Assembly in round 1?
He already submitted it, but yeah, he's going to remind the folks at home why he's going to be Player of the Year. I do think Purdue wins this game. Do they cover a lofty spread that'll be around 8 points? I don't know. I think they get revenge. You saw the first game, Edey dominated them. He had 33 points, 18 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Didn't really matter that TJD was there. He just did his little hook shot like he always does and scored. TJD had a great game as well, but there were some fortunate shooting splits there for Indiana. Purdue was like 58% from the free throw line. So I do think they get it back here at Marquee. Go Purdue.
Yeah, I want to credit Mr. Mark Titus for this take, Matt, but he's talking about how Assembly Hall is at its best when it's like Indiana's like a 2-point underdog and there's a little more like expectation, like we could win, but we're not tightening our buttholes. He's like, I hate being there when they're a 7-point favorite and they're like, how are we going to screw this up kind of thing. And that's how that game was. It was like the perfect atmosphere of like, all right, Purdue's expected to beat us, but we could still pull off this huge win. They do. I think that contributed to why some of the shooting splits went the way they do. With no Xavier Johnson back to stress that Purdue backcourt here, I think comfortably back at home, Indiana's not going to like pressure Purdue with some of the extended, not just press stuff like going for turnovers, but taking them out of the rhythm in their offense. So if Purdue gets in sets right away, they're going to get the ball to Edey eventually. But if they can't start sets until there's 14 seconds on the shot clock, then it stresses them out a little bit more. I don't think Indiana brings that to them at Marquee. I think Purdue takes care of business here.
I think Purdue wins. I don't know if they win emphatically. I do worry about that last game for Indiana. I know it was at Michigan State with all of we talked about how awesome home court has been. It's basically impossible to win on the road in this conference, coupled with the emotional energy jolt that was through that building with the Michigan State stuff. Just a tough place to win for Indiana, but just the lack of role player contribution. When you look at guys like Geronimo and Bates, who just haven't been consistent off the bench, even with Race Thompson back, I do worry that Indiana, while I am sold as them being a legit, title fringe contender type of team, do they have enough horses to surround TJD? So that's my
title contender.
TJD 7 turnovers
in the tier 2,
in
my little tier 2 time. Yeah, I know. We'll see though. Xavier Johnson maybe comes back and gives them a little boost, but don't bank on that.
Yeah, if he's not checking social media every 2 seconds.
Which I will not be. We head down to Lone Star State, Kai, where we will talk Sikkim, Baylor, hosting the Longhorns. Baylor's defense. We talked about ad nauseum how much Jonathan Cha-Cha, his return, gives an energy spark and a boost to that end of the floor. I'm looking at Baylor's defensive results the last few games. Like, maybe it's just a really bad defense that's exceedingly shot-making reliant, and I need to accept that. And it's not the Baylor team I thought preseason. Jim, your thoughts on that take?
Yeah, Baylor gave up 75 points to Kansas State, 1.15 points per possession, and K-State was 4 of 21 from 3.
Yeah, they didn't make shots, right?
Like, they got gashed inside. And again, I've said it on here, I think they switch too much. I think they get in really bad matchups frequently where their little guards are guarding Keontae Johnson, and their smaller guards can't keep people in front off the bounce, which puts even more stress on that already sort of lacking rim protection. The offense is good enough to win a lot of games. Obviously, look at where they're at right now in a 2-seed discussion, but the defense is like fatal flaw caliber. Last year, again, that's all we said about Purdue. It's like, okay, they're going to be a 2 or 3 seed, but the defense isn't good enough. No team with that footprint ever advances that far in the postseason. I think I probably need to arrive at that same conclusion with Baylor. They're more guard based, so I get that, perhaps we should be more friendly to them, but I think that defense is going to be a fatal flaw. Translated to this game against Texas, I'm concerned, Kai. I think Texas kind of gets what they want. Timmy Allen destroyed them in the first game. He's that kind of bigger wing mismatch that they don't have a guy for other than Bridges, and they switch their guards onto him, and he's going to have a feast. So I lean towards Texas.
I'm leaning Baylor. I think it'll be good for them back at home. You're right, Matt. The last 2 games have been a bit of a departure from what we thought Baylor was going towards, the direction they were going towards defensively. But they were on the road at Fog, at the Octagon of Doom, 2 of the toughest places to play in the entire country. Being back at home, I think, is going to help. I'm still a big believer in Scott Drew figuring something out on the defensive end, and their offense is no joke. They are the best offensive team in the Big 12, number 2 in the country. The Flagler-Cryer-George combo has been fantastic. So I like Baylor here. The spread is going to be pretty short too.
Mix in the zone more. He brought it in a little bit.
Yeah, I like the zone.
I want to see more.
Like the zone.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great spot. You're right. Them going back home. I'll tell you, if Texas goes in and wins this game, that won't be a full, like, oh, I'm all the way out on Baylor epiphany for me. It'd also be Texas might just be really good, like just as good, if not better than we thought. Coming off that Iowa State demolition, Oklahoma. I don't know. The Big 12 is tough to figure out, man. You need to probably not react on a game-to-game basis. That's probably the best approach. All right, our last game, we head all the way west for the much-anticipated rematch of St. Mary's in Gonzaga, and this is an odd role reversal for these two programs. St. Mary's with a 1-game lead in the WCC, Jim, at 13-1. Gonzaga at 12-2. Gonzaga wins this game. They even it up, tie for first, cement their how many years in a row they won that conference title? I think it's over
a lot.
decade.
I don't know exactly what it is.
A lot, many. Doesn't matter. A lot. Gonzaga at home at the Kennel against St. Mary's with a quasi underdog tag attached to them. I feel like the Zags just take care of business here. I love St. Mary's, but I think they win.
Yeah, I like Gonzaga here. They controlled the first matchup, even at St. Mary's. It took some big time late heroics from Aiden Mahaney to get it to overtime, even in the first place, and then even win in overtime. There's a banked 3 mixed in there. If Mahaney doesn't bank in a 3, Gonzaga probably wins that. And the narrative around these two and this race is probably super, super different. Yeah, Kai, I've been a big Gonzaga detractor versus your Gonzaga optimism this season, but I think this is a great spot for them. And generally from a matchup, I think St. Mary's doesn't have the offense that can consistently punish a bad Gonzaga defense.
Yep, I agree. I like the Zags as well here for reasons you guys stated. And Gonzaga's offense has been freaking incredible this season. I'm still a big believer in this team. I kind of like that they're under the radar in opposition to years past. Their defense has been lagging a bit, but I think they get this one against St. Mary's.
Yeah, they held LMU to 0.83 points per possession, but then gave up 1.2 to the Waves. I feel like sometimes in these lopsided blowouts, though, they just kind of take their foot off the gas. But then we've seen them against good teams not actually defend at a high level. I thought they were pretty good in that first game against the Gales, though.
I mean,
you're right.
Gonzaga was up. Gonzaga was not blowing up Pepperdine. They were up 1 with 4 minutes left.
Oh, I'm thinking of the LMU. Oh, yeah, you're right. That was a close game. Another 100 to 100 Pepperdine Gonzaga game seems like the most obvious over every season. It's going to be a good one, though. Everyone will enjoy it. We'll enjoy it. And we hope you have enjoyed our presentation today live or at a later time and date via the podcast format. Thank you for joining. We'll be back next week in the official month of March. Or, can I do math? Calendar says next Wednesday is March 1st. Oh, my goodness. How fitting. Well, come back for the kickoff of the greatest month of the year next week. Until that time, take care.